the sky? I mean, who does this guy think we are? A bunch of grade schoolers? Anybody can get a Strong's Concordance and find out that the word for ark in the ancient Hebrew is pronounced tabah, and it doesn't rhyme with anything to do with the word ark, A-R-C. So these kinds of completely unsupported, ridiculous accusations, I believe this guy gets from other books by occultists and from things he learned when he was in secret societies. And you can even listen to the second half of his show from last Friday, where he admits he was involved, had correspondence, what have you, with people that were involved with secret societies. He said it on previous shows that he was involved with secret societies and asked to go join the higher levels. Any place you want to go to, whether it's YouTube or whatever, you can find these types of clips. And so this guy clearly has no education in this particular field of study and has no business making these claims. So I'm going to play the next clip when I tried to get him the next week and let you decide for yourself when he and the following caller were cut off merely for trying to get him to cough up any relevant evidence to his ridiculous claims.
But I want to follow up. I called in Wednesday, and I'd like to just talk about what you alleged last Wednesday.
It's not religion, is it?
Well, no, it's about history.
No, it's about religion.
Yeah, no, but I'd like you to
we'll take the next caller.
Take the next caller. Question and not browbeat me.
Let's take the next caller. I will not talk about your religion under any guise.
So Alan unceremoniously cuts me off. He can't bear to have any facts laid out. He accuses me of talking about religion, yet he spends the bulk of his programs telling me that my religion has been fabricated. Utter hypocrisy. But then this caller by the name of Lucas calls in, which I'll play briefly the intro, and then he goes in to ask him about his associations with the other New Age gurus, so to speak, in the 9/11 Truth movement. I think he's talking about Tsarion, but there's no names actually given. But his second question, Lucas asks Alan why he cut me off and why he can't stand to have any actual facts stated. And once again, Alan cuts this next guy off unceremoniously as well. It's just so telling that this guy has no grasp of ancient or classical history, cannot defend his wild statements. It's clear that this guy's statements are based on belief and not fact, and yet he says he won't discuss belief. So I don't need to belabor the point, but here's Lucas's intro and then his second question where he gets cut off.
So go on to Lucas from Seattle.
Hello?
Hello, Lucas.
Hi, Alan. Nice to be on the show.
It's nice you're here.
I guess, let's see, what was I going to ask you about? Oh, yes, I would like to get your views on the importance of integrity and transparency when it comes to gurus and teachers in the 9/11 Truth movement. Yes, I would like to know why it is you can't seem to answer any questions when it comes to your stance on Jesus being a mythical figure.
Because I could spend about 2 months giving you history lessons, including the exoteric, long before the Christian version. I could give you the esoteric and the esoteric, but I won't do it.
Well, you don't seem to have any proof. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is you can't prove anything.
Well, belief.
That's why you don't want to talk about it.
Belief and faith boils down.
It's not about faith, it's about the historical record.
Let me speak here.
And that's what Jeff was talking about before you cut him off.
Belief, no, that guy's been bugging me for a few weeks here with emails and everything.
I know he's a persistent fellow.
Well, look, I told him I don't need, and he should be quite happy with that, him to force me to go along with his belief.
I don't think he's forcing you. He's just asking you where the proof is, and that's a
he hasn't read botanists or any other authors, I'm sure, that go into all the pre-Christian sons of God and their virgin mothers.
Yeah, but that's already been debunked by various people. J.P. Holding, tectonics.org.
Oh, I know.
He's debunked every one of these theories by Carnac and all these other theorists.
Cut him off, will you?
Okay, well, I believe that was Lucas Allen of newworldexposure.blogspot.com. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Thank you, Lucas, for your help. And thank you to JP Holding of Tectonics.org, and also to Beit Shalom Ministries, the two guys over there, Brother Elliot and Brother Raymond, that have been putting together documentaries exposing people just like Alan Watt, and these people coming out with DVDs like The God Who Wasn't There and Zeitgeist, showing that all of these claims are based on older claims by occultists and not actual history. All right, so getting back to Mr. Watt here, this guy, whether or not you're a Christian, I would assume that as leaders in this whole movement, that you are about getting the truth out, no matter where it leads, and that freedom of speech should not be infringed. I mean, if people call into a network and want to bring forth evidence in support of their claims and politely challenge the statements of hosts, then let them. I mean, heck, I thought this was America, not communist Russia. Now let's move on. My second claim here, how Alan fits the profile of a secret society infiltrator. Let me be clear that it is my personal opinion that Watt is an infiltrator, and I have no proof. Nonetheless, here are my evidences and reasons for this claim. British secret societies have, ever since the American Revolution, attempted to infiltrate, delude, demoralize, and control the citizens of the free states of America. They infiltrate under pretenses, whether false or not, with the attempt at subverting our beliefs, especially our individual faiths. Alan has admitted on air on more than one occasion of his involvement. His amount of involvement obviously is secret and unspecified. His involvement with secret societies. And that he was even offered an opportunity to move to higher levels in those secret societies, and also asked to, quote, push the alien agenda. The most recent admission was on last Friday's call to a caller, to this Lucas individual, Lucas Allen. You can see from his own bio at cuttingthroughthematrix.com that Allen, he publishes written works on religious subjects under pseudonyms, titles that he does not share on the website. So what were those book titles, Alan? I want to know what your pseudonyms were. I want to know what those book titles were. And I want to go and find out what you claimed in those books. You're all about getting the message out, aren't you? Aren't you about the truth movement, man? 2, he is primarily a musician and not a professor of history or mythology or politics. He provides no resume, no transcript, nothing. Now, I am not an expert in history. I am not a professor. I'm not a doctor. I do have a degree in international studies from a very respected institution, the Virginia Military Institute, and I did have to study ancient history and know the methods for studying ancient history because I had to be trained as a Marine officer in the study of ancient warfare, like the battles of Cannae, the Punic Wars, the Roman phalanx, the Swiss pike, etc., etc. So I have a broad idea and understanding of what is and is not accepted as the secular body of history. Now, I'm not even talking about the history of the Bible and what Christian belief is, mainstream or otherwise. I'm talking about what secular academia accepts. I'm talking about the same secular academia that was pro-Da Vinci Code. Even the Da Vinci Code didn't try to say Jesus never existed. Give me a break. Okay, so let's move on here. My third little claim here is he provides zero evidence of formal education in classical or ancient history. And so finally, my point on this is anyone who has studied Albert Pike knows that the Masonic plan is to destroy all religions and finally atheism as well, and then bring in the one world Luciferian religion, which I believe ultimately will be the whole Starseed conspiracy. But more on that later. Albert Pike here, born August 15th, 1871. I want to read a letter from Pike to Mazzini. This is well known here. He says, "We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which, in all its horror, will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, the origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then, everywhere the citizens forced to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will form direction and leadership, anxious for an ideal, but without knowledge where to render its adoration. will receive the pure light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into public view, a manifestation which will result from a general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Enough evidence for you folks? All right, my third point, the uncontested evidence. I want to go over the uncontested evidence against Alan Watts' slanderous and libelous claims about the historicity of Jesus and the Israelites. Included here is basically an actual quote in this analysis by Tacitus in the Annals of Rome. All right, and this is Book 15, Section 44 here in the Annals of Tacitus. This is unchallenged, undisputed history. Okay, folks. Okay, so Tacitus says, to dispel the rumor, Nero substituted as culprits and treated with the most extreme punishments some people, popularly known as Christians, whose disgraceful activities were notorious. The originator of that name, Christus, which is Latin, basically from where we get Christ, had been executed when Tiberius was emperor by order of the procurator Pontius Pilate, or he says Pontius Pilatus. But the deadly cult, though checked for a time, was now breaking out again, not only in Judea, the birthplace of this evil, but even throughout Rome, where all the nasty and disgusting ideas from all over the world pour in and find a ready following. And I'm sure that's what Alan Watt thinks of those who actually believe in the actual historical record that Jesus existed, and especially those who are Christians, that we are nasty and disgusting, at least in our minds. Now, I want to share a very brief email from Dr. Paul L. Meyer. That's spelled M-A-I-E-R, and you can check him out on the web. Dr. Paul L. Meyer is an expert in classical and ancient history, and he was basically responsible for an important translation of the Church History by Eusebius. And you can get the book Church History that was translated by Dr. Meyer and read it for yourself about the history of the early church. And he actually responded to an email I sent to him, and I wanted to ask him about non-Christian sources about the ancient Israelites, because I'm trying to be intellectually honest here and say, okay, for the secular folks who don't want to read the Bible, what is in the actual historical record by non-Israelite peoples about the Israelites? Were they celestial beings that were made up by the elite? Well, let's see what Dr. Meyer says. He says, "Hello, Jeff. You're right about, quote, no one knows history anymore, unquote. This is simply tragic, and it leads to the imbecility of those who say there were not 12 tribes of Israel or that Moses never existed. All such people do is to parade out their total ignorance for all to see, and you can tell them that a professor of ancient history told you that. Exclamation point. All surrounding countries in the ancient world mention the Israelites. In Egypt, the Merneptah stela boasts, quote, Israel, his seed is wasted, unquote, meaning they conquered them. They are also cited by Herodotus. Herodotus was considered, by the way, the father of ancient history, of ancient secular history. I'll continue with his email here. He says, in all subsequent ancient classical authors, to the east, not only the Assyrian references, but the famous Cyrus cylinder records how he permitted the Jews to return to Babylon, from Babylon to Jerusalem, in total parallel to the biblical record, and so forth and so on. All the best, Paul L. Meyer. And by the way, you can check out the Merneptah Stela yourself. It's spelled M-E-R-N-E-P-T-A-H. And there's a Wikipedia entry on it, and it's basically undeniable evidence that during the reign of Amenhotep III, the peoples that were conquered by him were listed on this stela, and one of those peoples were the Israelites. All right, so there you go. There's the hardcore proof, and I challenge Alan Watt to come out and try and challenge this with any of his so-called proof, if he even has any. Apparently he doesn't, because he's too afraid to answer my questions. Now, my fourth little point here is I sent 2 different emails ahead of time to Alan at the address on his website, trying to give him a chance, because I don't know this guy. I wanted to give him a chance to clarify his statements before I confronted him on the air. And so I basically read him about Tacitus, and I also gave him a quote to Beit Shalom Ministries and also to tectonics.org, J.P. Holdings site, and that's spelled Tektonics.org. And he refutes all of the occultic authors of the 18th and 19th centuries that said the same sort of thing that Alan Watt is saying now, that Jesus really is an invention or a copy from older sources, and that in fact all of this religious dogma and nonsense, according to them, is all basically esoteric and symbological or symbolic of the heavenly bodies, the zodiac, if you will. And so finally, we get to my last point here, a formal request here to all of these so-called truth media, truth movement, 9/11 truth movement hosts, to help expose this fraud artist who calls himself Alan Watt. So I urge all of these leaders who care about the truth to